Before you spend another nickel, stop. Seriously, stop. Because right now, there are ordinary-looking coins quietly moving through pockets, vending machines, gas stations. Coins people treat like loose change, but collectors are fighting over them for insane money. I'm talking about buffalo nickels that look worn, dark, even ugly, yet hide a silent fortune most people never notice. Some of these coins have triggered real auction shock, selling for hundreds of thousands of dollars, while the exact same coin might still be sitting in someone's pocket change. That's hidden wealth hiding in plain sight. And today on US MintX, we're exposing 3 buffalo nickels you should never spend, because one tiny detail could mean you're holding life-changing money. Check your pocket now. Look at your old jars. Nobody talks about these coins, but collectors absolutely know. And trust me, each coin on this list gets rarer, scarier, and more valuable. So whatever you do not spend these coins. Coin number 1. Picture this for a second. Someone empties their pocket after buying coffee. A few coins slide across the table. Quarters, pennies, maybe a nickel with a dark brown surface and a worn buffalo on the back. Most people wouldn't even look at it twice. They'd toss it into a tip jar or drop it into a parking meter. But that exact moment, that careless second, could mean accidentally spending $465,000. And the wild part? It has happened before. Because one specific coin that looks completely ordinary, the 1934D Buffalo nickel, has quietly become one of those pieces of American money that collectors watch like hawks. If you're holding the right one in the right condition, you're not holding 5 cents. You're holding hidden wealth. And this is why you should never rush past the details. The year 1934 wasn't just another year in the United States. The country was clawing its way out of the worst economic collapse in modern history, the Great Depression. Banks had failed, families had lost everything, and the government was trying desperately to stabilize the economy. The year before, President Franklin D. Roosevelt had taken the nation off the gold standard, shaking the entire financial system. During that time, the US Mint was under intense pressure to produce massive quantities of coins for circulation. Businesses needed change again, wages were being paid, and the economy was slowly waking up. But whenever the mint moves fast, something else happens. Metal dies wear out, machines run hot, quality slips, and sometimes rarity is born. The Buffalo nickel, originally designed by the legendary sculptor James Earl Fraser, was already one of the most difficult coins the mint had ever tried to produce. Its bold, high-relief design looked incredible, but the deep details caused dies to wear out quickly, which meant coins from certain mints and certain years came out with subtle differences that collectors obsess over today. Now let's talk about the design itself, because this coin carries one of the most iconic images in American money. On the front, the obverse, you'll see the powerful portrait of a Native American chief. Fraser didn't base this face on just one person. Instead, he combined features from several real Native American leaders he met, creating a composite portrait meant to represent the strength and heritage of indigenous America. The cheekbones are strong. The braided hair flows downward. Feathers rise from the back of the head. And just above the shoulder, you'll see the word Liberty, usually worn but still visible if the coin survived well. Turn the coin over, and the reverse shows the animal that gave this coin its nickname, the massive American buffalo. Technically, it's an American bison, modeled after a real animal named Black Diamond that once lived in the Central Park Zoo. The buffalo stands heavy and grounded, its hump towering over the field of the coin. Beneath its feet is the denomination 5 cents. And somewhere near the bottom, depending on where, you will see the mint mark that changes everything. For this coin, that tiny letter is D. That means it was struck at the Denver Mint. And collectors know something about the Denver issues. From the mid-1930s, many were struck under heavy production pressure. That pressure left small clues: defatigue, weak strikes, subtle texture differences in the fields. And when a coin survives decades with those details still intact, collectors notice. The 1934D Buffalo nickel was struck using a metal composition that had been standard since the series began in 1913, 75% copper and 25% nickel. That alloy gave the coin a durable, slightly pale metallic color when fresh, but over time, many developed darker brown or gray layers, the kind of natural toning collectors actually love. And if your coin shows those brown layers instead of bright artificial shine, that could be a very good sign. Because natural aging tells collectors the surface hasn't been tampered with. Physically, the Buffalo nickel has a very specific feel in the hand. It weighs exactly 5 grams. Its diameter measures 21.2 millimeters, giving it that slightly wider appearance compared to modern nickels. The thickness sits around 1.95 millimeters, and the edge is completely smooth, no ridges. If you roll it between your fingers, you'll notice the coin feels dense for its size. That copper-nickel blend gives it a solid weight that collectors recognize instantly. But here's the detail most people miss: the condition. Your coin might look old, but condition changes everything. The example we're talking about today is graded very fine, meaning major design elements remain visible even though the coin has clearly circulated. On a very fine Buffalo nickel, the Native American's hair braid is still partly visible. The cheek contours remain strong, and the buffalo's horn usually shows partial definition. That level of preservation after nearly a century is not common. Think about what these coins went through. They passed through grocery stores during the Depression, through soldiers' pockets during World War II, through jukeboxes, train stations, diners, payphones. Millions were worn completely flat. Millions were melted. Millions simply disappeared. So when a 1934D Buffalo nickel survives with natural surfaces and strong detail, collectors get very interested. And here's where things become serious. Because collectors aren't casual about coins like this. When a desirable example appears in a major auction, the room changes. Bidders don't shout. They don't celebrate. They go quiet. Very quiet. Each person knows exactly what they're looking at. A survivor. A coin that connects directly to one of the most fragile periods in American economic history. And when two collectors both decide they want that coin, the bidding war becomes personal. Prices climb slowly, then suddenly, violently. And that's how a 5-cent coin can reach $465,000 in today's market. That number isn't just about metal. It's about scarcity, history, and survival. But here's where I need to give you a warning. And this is important. If you ever find a Buffalo nickel that might be valuable, do not spend this coin. And whatever you do, never clean it. Cleaning might seem harmless. People think they're improving the coin. But the second a coin is cleaned, polished, or scrubbed, the original surface is destroyed forever. Collectors can spot that damage instantly, and the value can collapse. Original toning, even if it looks dark or dirty, is exactly what collectors want. That natural surface is proof the coin survived honestly. If you truly think you found one of these coins, the smartest move is professional grading. Experts can authenticate the coin, evaluate its condition, and seal it in a protective holder that preserves its value. That single step can can be the difference between a coin worth 5 cents and a silent fortune. And here's a tip most new collectors learn the hard way. The first thing you should check on any buffalo nickel is the date and the mint mark. Then, look closely at the buffalo's horn and the Native American's hair braid. Those details tell you how much wear the coin experienced. Patience is everything in coin collecting. People who rush usually miss the treasure. But those who pay attention, who slow down, who inspect every coin carefully, they're the ones who sometimes discover life-changing money sitting in a jar of spare change. And believe it or not, the coin we just talked about isn't even the rarest one in this video. Because the next buffalo nickel on our list carries a detail so strange, so unexpected, that collectors sometimes stare at it for minutes before realizing what they're seeing. And when they do, the price jumps into territory that makes $465,000 look small. Stay with me, because the next coin is where things get truly unbelievable. Next up, the crazy part about rare coins is that sometimes the most dangerous one to ignore is the one that looks the most beautiful. Imagine picking up a buffalo nickel that almost glows under the light. Instead of dull gray, it carries these deep blue and black shades across the surface, the kind of antique toning that makes collectors freeze for a moment. To most people, it just looks like an old nickel with a little color, maybe even a little dirty. But that exact coin, if it happens to be the 1913 buffalo nickel without a mint mark, could quietly be worth $498,000, almost $500,000. And the frightening part is that coins like this have slipped through circulation for decades because people didn't realize what they were holding. They spent them in vending machines, dropped them into laundromats, or tossed them in jars of loose change. So before we go any further, listen carefully. If you ever see a buffalo nickel dated 1913 with no mint mark, do not spend this coin. Because this coin marks the very beginning of one of the most legendary coin series in American history. Let's rewind to the moment this coin was born. The year was 1913, and the United States was standing right at the edge of a new economic era. The country was expanding fast. Industries were booming, railroads were moving goods across the nation, and cities were growing rapidly. But there was also growing pressure to redesign American money. President Theodore Roosevelt had already pushed for a renaissance in US coin design years earlier. He believed American coins looked boring compared to European currency, and he wanted them to reflect the nation's culture and strength. That idea eventually led to the creation of the buffalo nickel. When sculptor James Earl Fraser was chosen to design the coin, he didn't want something simple. He wanted something powerful, something that captured the spirit of America itself. So he created a coin unlike anything that had come before it. On the front of the coin, the obverse, you see the intense portrait of a Native American. This isn't a generic face. Fraser studied real tribal leaders and blended their features into a single powerful image. The nose is strong. The brow is heavy. The hair braid hangs down near the shoulder. And just above the profile sits the word liberty, though on circulated coins it can sometimes fade into the surface. The entire design almost feels sculpted rather than stamped. Turn the coin over and you'll see the reason collectors fell in love with this series instantly. The reverse shows a massive American buffalo standing on raised ground. The animal looks calm but powerful, with thick shoulders and a heavy hump dominating the design. Underneath the buffalo is the denomination 5 cents. But here's the tiny detail that matters more than almost anything else. The mint mark. On some buffalo nickels, you'll see a small D for Denver or an S for San Francisco. But on this particular coin, there is no mint mark at all. That means it was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, the main production facility of the United States Mint. Now you might be wondering, why would the absence of a mint mark matter? Because the 1913 issue was the very first year the Buffalo nickel ever existed. Whenever a new coin design launches, the mint goes through a chaotic learning period. Dies break faster than expected. Strikes vary in strength. Production pressure builds quickly because millions of coins are needed immediately. The Buffalo nickel was especially difficult to produce because its design had very high relief. That meant the details were deep and bold, but it also meant dies wore out extremely fast. Many early coins came out with inconsistent strikes, uneven surfaces, and subtle variations that collectors obsess over today. And that brings us to the physical feel of the coin itself. If you place a genuine Buffalo nickel in your palm, it has a very distinctive presence. It weighs 5 grams, the official standard used throughout the entire Buffalo nickel series. Its diameter measures 21.2 millimeters, giving it that slightly broader face compared to modern nickels. The thickness is around 1.95 millimeters, and the edge is smooth without ridges. Collectors sometimes talk about the girth of this coin, not because it's huge, but because the design spreads outward strongly across the surface. The buffalo nearly touches the edges, making the coin feel bold and full. But here's where things get fascinating. The color. A well-preserved 1913 Buffalo nickel can develop stunning natural toning over time. The copper and nickel mixture, 75% copper and 25% nickel, reacts slowly with the environment over decades. Instead of rusting like iron, the surface develops subtle color layers. Blues, deep charcoal blacks, sometimes even hints of violet or steel gray. Those blue and black shades you see on certain coins are not damage. They're the result of nearly a century of slow chemical interaction with air and storage conditions. And collectors absolutely love that look, because it proves the coin has never been cleaned. Which brings us to one of the biggest mistakes people make. They try to make the coin shiny. That's a disaster. The second someone cleans a coin, wipes it, polishes it, dips it in chemicals, the original surface is gone forever. Under magnification, experts can see the tiny scratches and altered texture immediately. And when that happens, collectors lose interest fast. A cleaned coin can lose a massive portion of its value. So if you ever find one of these, leave it exactly the way it is. Even if it looks dark, even if it looks old, that antique surface is part of its story. Now let's talk about why surviving examples in very fine condition are so rare today. Buffalo nickels circulated heavily during the early 20th century. They were used constantly in grocery stores, train stations, soda fountains, and streetcar fares. Because the design had high relief, the date was one of the first things to wear off. Millions of Buffalo nickels literally lost their dates completely. You've probably seen one before, a Buffalo nickel where the numbers are totally gone. Collectors call those dateless coins, and they're extremely common. But a 1913 coin that still clearly shows its date and strong design details after more than a century? That's a survivor. In very fine condition, the Native American's braid still shows detail, the cheek contours remain visible, and the buffalo's horn usually has partial shape remaining. That level of preservation makes collectors pay attention, because collectors don't just buy coins, they chase them. There's a psychological pull to the first-year issue of any major coin series. It represents the moment the design entered the world, the beginning of the story. And when one of these beautifully toned 1913 coins appears in the market, the reaction is intense. Auction rooms become quiet. Phones come out. Private collectors start calculating how badly they want it. And slowly, bid by bid, the price climbs higher. Until suddenly a coin that once bought a cup of coffee becomes worth $498,000. That's not pocket change. That's serious money hiding in plain sight. It's the kind of silent fortune that can sit unnoticed in a coin jar for decades. Which is why collectors always say the same thing to beginners. Slow down and look at your coins. Check the date first. Then check for the mint mark. Study the surface color. And if something looks unusual, darker toning, older wear patterns, strong details, set it aside. Patience creates wealth in coin collecting. The people who rush miss everything. But the ones who pay attention sometimes discover that one forgotten coin in a drawer, the one nobody thought twice about, is actually worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. And believe it or not, the next buffalo nickel we're about to reveal is even more unbelievable. Because this final coin has a detail so rare, so mysterious, that when collectors spot it, they don't just bid aggressively. They fight for it. And the number it can reach makes $500,000 look almost small. Next up, there's a moment every serious coin collector dreams about. Not finding a shiny, perfect coin in a display case, but discovering something quietly valuable, hiding where nobody expected it. A coin that looks old, maybe a little brown, maybe even worn. The kind of nickel people drop into parking meters without a second thought. And that's exactly why the 1925 Buffalo nickel with no mint mark is so dangerous to ignore. Because the version we're talking about today, the one with those subtle brown wave-like layers across the surface sitting in very fine condition, has shocked collectors with market prices reaching around $478,000. Yes, almost $500,000 for something that many people still treat like 5 cents. Which means one brutal truth. Somewhere, sometime, someone has absolutely spent one of these without realizing what they were holding. So if you ever come across a 1925 Buffalo nickel without a mint mark, stop immediately. Look closely, and whatever you do, do not spend this coin. Because coins like this are more than old money. They're physical survivors from one of the most fascinating periods in American history. The year 1925 sits right in the heart of what historians call the Roaring Twenties. The United States was booming. Cities were exploding with energy. Jazz music, automobiles, movie theaters, and skyscrapers were transforming daily life. Factories were producing goods faster than ever, and people were spending money with confidence. But inside the US Mint, something else was happening. Production pressure was building. Coins had to move fast into circulation to support this expanding economy. The demand for everyday change was enormous. Nickels, dimes, and pennies were flowing through stores, railroads, gas stations, and diners every single day. And the Buffalo nickel was one of the hardest coins to produce under that pressure. The design, which had debuted back in 1913, was beautiful but technically difficult. Its deep, sculpted details caused dies to wear down quickly. Machines had to strike coins with enormous force just to push metal into all those curves and ridges. Over time, that constant pressure left subtle marks on the coins. Some came out slightly weaker in certain areas. Some developed unusual surface textures. And some, like the coin we're talking about today, aged in ways that collectors now find mesmerizing. Before we talk about those brown wave patterns, let's step back and look at the coin itself. The Buffalo nickel was designed by the renowned American sculptor James Earl Fraser, who wanted the coin to represent the true spirit of the American frontier. Instead of symbols of government or industry, Fraser chose two powerful icons of American identity. On the front of the coin, known as the obverse, you see the bold profile of a Native American man. Fraser didn't invent this face. He created it by blending the features of several real Native American leaders he had studied. The result is a striking portrait with deep-set eyes, a strong nose, and a braided lock of hair hanging along the shoulder. Above the profile is the word liberty, though on circulated coins, the letters sometimes soften into the background. Even after decades of use, that face still carries a quiet dignity. Flip the coin over, and the reverse reveals the image that gave the coin its famous nickname. A powerful American buffalo, standing firmly on a raised mound of earth. The animal's heavy shoulders and curved horns dominate the design. Its stance feels calm but unstoppable, exactly the way Fraser wanted it to appear. Below the buffalo is the denomination 5 cents. And near the bottom of the coin, where collectors always look next, is the mint mark. Except on this coin, there isn't one. No D, no S, nothing at all. That absence tells collectors the coin was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, which traditionally didn't use mint marks during many early coin years. Now, to the untrained eye, that might not seem special. But collectors understand something important about certain Philadelphia issues from the mid-1920s. Many were struck during periods when dies were already wearing down, and that wear sometimes created unusual surface patterns as the metal flowed during striking. Which brings us to the feature collectors obsess over with this particular coin. The brown waves. Over decades, the copper-nickel alloy of the buffalo nickel slowly reacts with air, humidity, and storage environments. Instead of rusting, it develops natural toning, subtle color shifts that can appear as gradients, patches, or flowing layers. On some well-preserved 1,925 buffalo nickels, that toning forms gentle, wave-like bands of brown across the surface. It's not damage, it's not corrosion, it's the fingerprint of time. And collectors love it because it proves the coin has likely remained untouched for generations. Those antique surfaces tell a story. They say the coin hasn't been polished, hasn't been scrubbed, hasn't been chemically dipped, and that matters more than most people realize. Because the fastest way to destroy the value of a rare coin is to clean it. Even a soft cloth can leave microscopic scratches. Chemical cleaners strip away original metal layers. And the moment those natural surfaces disappear, the coin's collector appeal can collapse. So if you ever find an old buffalo nickel that looks dark, toned, or even slightly dirty, leave it exactly the way it is. That natural skin is part of the treasure. Now let's talk about the physical characteristics of the coin, something serious collectors pay close attention to. A genuine buffalo nickel carries a weight of exactly 5 grams. Its diameter measures 21.2 millimeters, giving the design enough space for Fraser's deep sculptural details. The coin's thickness averages around 1.95 millimeters, and the edge is completely smooth. If you hold one between your fingers, you'll notice it feels dense and compact, a small disc with a surprisingly solid presence. Collectors sometimes describe the coin's girth as strong for its size because the buffalo design spreads broadly across the field, nearly touching the rim. Every detail feels intentional. But here's the harsh reality. Most buffalo nickels didn't survive very well. The high-relief design caused heavy wear in circulation, especially on the date and the buffalo's horn. After years of use, millions of these coins lost their defining details completely. You've probably seen them, buffalo nickels, where the date is gone entirely. Collectors call those slicks. They're common, but a 1925 buffalo nickel that still shows clear design elements in very fine condition? That's a different story. On a very fine example, you can still see the Native American's hair braid and cheek structure. The buffalo's horn retains partial shape, and the animal's outline remains strong. Those surviving details make the coin dramatically more desirable. And once collectors notice those details, competition begins. Not loudly, not dramatically, but quietly, intensely. At major auctions, when a beautifully toned 1925 buffalo nickel appears, collectors start calculating. Some are building complete buffalo nickel sets. Others are investing in historically significant pieces. And many are simply chasing the emotional thrill of owning a coin that survived nearly 100 years of American history. That demand keeps growing. But the supply? It only shrinks. Coins are lost, damaged, mishandled, or locked away in private collections where they may stay for decades. So when a high-quality survivor enters the market, the reaction is immediate. Phones start ringing. Bidders lean forward. And the price begins climbing until that quiet little nickel reaches numbers that feel unbelievable. Numbers like $478,000. A silent fortune, hiding in something most people overlook. Which is why collectors always repeat a simple rule. Check your coins, especially buffalo nickels. Look at the date. Look for the mint mark. Study the surface color and texture. And if you ever come across a 1925 example without a mint mark showing beautiful brown toning and strong details, stop, set it aside, and get it evaluated by a professional grading service. That one decision could protect a piece of history, and possibly reveal a life-changing treasure hiding in plain sight. Because the truth is simple. America's rare coins aren't always locked in museums or vaults. Sometimes they're sitting in kitchen drawers, old jars, coin rolls, or forgotten boxes in someone's attic. Quiet, unnoticed, waiting for the right person to finally recognize their value. And sometimes that person is you.